Today I've been outside the chainsaw and I've got these yew logs, or yew log that's about 4 foot long, that I've cut down into sections so that I can make some end grain frilly edged bowls. I've got about 4 or 5 pieces. I've had it for 2 or 3 years, so even getting through it with the chainsaw was hard work. It's rock hard, so this will be fun. First off, I'm going to chuck it between some centres and turn. I'm using a bowl gouge, not a spindle roughing gouge, because it's just too bobbly. I'm not really sure where I'm going with the shape when I'm doing this, but that's the fun of doing a bit of freeform and seeing where it goes to. The wood was so hard I chose to drill the Forstner down in 2 stages, just so I didn't burn out the drill bits. After I took out the edge with the bowl gouge, I'm just hollowing it out now with a carbide, the Axminster Evolution, because there are some frilly bits and eventually there'll be some holes appearing, so got to be a little careful. So after a little rim detail, just trying now to thin it out and make sure that I'm actually getting some recesses, some holes occurring, which I'm beginning to get, which is what I want, and carry on getting it down to the point where it's thin enough without it wanting to fall apart. Kept checking the thickness. And now, because I've got these cutouts, if you like, I'm just going to use the Dremel to make them more obvious and embellish it a bit more so that the shape is more obviously indented. So with the holes embellished more, some sanding obviously was done, a lot of it done by hand because of the holes, and then slathered it with cellulose sanding sealer because it's now splitting, as yew tends to do. So I've got to now glue it up, and yew stains terribly if you put CA glue on without it being sealed first. So a good soaking of cellulose sanding sealer will hopefully stop it from staining. So I've now masked everything up to try and control the runoff from the CA glue, including the inside, so that's white green there on the inside, and use the sawdust trick, super glue, sawdust, rub it in. I use a palette knife to push it into the cracks, and then rub it in and tend to sand it down then with something like 240 or 320 over the glue, which does ruin the sandpaper, but it produces a sort of slurry that you can push into the into the crack whilst it's wet. You've got to be careful not to glue your fingers, of course, to the U, which can happen. I don't know why I know that. Okay, well, I've filled it and messed about with all of the cracks. Took ages, as it often does, with the glue and doing it multiple times. But there's some interesting figuring in this, and the cracks are quite well filled. And dremeling, well, that just produced a bit of interest. So I think I'm going to do some burnishing cream now. Yeah, it's just got a nice bit more of a sheen to it. Burnished up the sanding sealer and then wipe everything over with mess before I spray it. Well, there are then a few coats of lacquer and not too bad a finish, I don't think, on the inside. Okay, let's turn off the bottom now. I grip the bowl with the chuck on it on the Simon Hope wood carving jig, which is a very useful jig thing to have because it just sits in the tool rest and you can work on it without taking off the chuck. So with that all done and sprayed up, and just now reversed it on the button jaws, which are helpful because they can grip the wood in the uneven shape that it is, and then just very carefully turn off the bottom before doing a bit of texturing. With as much turned off as possible with the tailstock support up, very gingerly finish it off without any of that support, because this is very easily able to fly off the chuck if you're not careful and get even the smallest of catches. And then time to get the big Sorby texturing wheel out and have a go. It's always a little bit potluck as to whether the actual angle gets you exactly the little pattern you like. In this case I was pretty fortunate. I got the little three-legged Isle of Man detail in the middle. It's just about being firm and holding it in place for a few seconds, unless you are, of course, wanting to move it, but just nice and steady, nice firm push. If you mess about, it'll skitter off the surface and make a mess. So those cuts were done with the cog sort of at the 1 or 2 o'clock. This is now turned, so it's the opposite direction, 10, 11 o'clock, and that produces a spiral in the opposite direction. And then just use a point tool to demarcate the various areas of texture to make it a bit neater. And then a bit of rub and buff, gold coppery paste rubbed into the detail, just to bring it out and highlight it a little bit without it clashing too much with the colour of the U. And there we have it, quite effective, and I think the high gloss shine with the lacquer actually complemented it quite well.